Hey everybody, I'm Matt Milstead. Super excited to be here today. You may remember me from such films as the MoGraph podcast, a weekly podcast that we do all about motion graphics, where we interview different motion graphics industry professionals. Or you may know me from our yearly event called Camp MoGraph. It's a chance for motion graphics artists to get out into nature and do some workshops and have some fireside chats and stuff. So make sure and check that out. Yeah, campmograph.com. Sign up for updates and stuff. Tickets go on sale in April. The event's in September. And so, yeah, for those who don't know, we have our side hustles, but we also have our main hustles. And our main hustle is actually a motion design studio here in Dallas called Nexus Motion. Nexus Motion is where we do all of our 3D animation jobs, 3D, 2D, compositing, all of the above. We can handle just about anything you can throw at us. So what we're going to be going over today are some of the animations that we did for EA for their Madden 2021 game. For the Madden Ultimate Team card unwrap reveals. We are super excited to work on this job. We, along with another local animation studio called Brazen, worked on this together in order to make this for EA, and I think it turned out pretty well. We had a lot of videos that we had to create. We had to create basically unwrapping animations for every single one that they had, and it ended up being a lot of work over a short amount of time, and we were able to use Cinema 4D in order to really accomplish that. So I'll show off a few of the things, just a few pieces of the work that we did, and then I'm going to give you a breakdown of how we ended up getting some of these done. So these are the 4 animations that we're going to be going over today. A lot of really fun stuff and a lot of things that we kind of had to troubleshoot and figure out how to accomplish. So the first animation we're going to go over today is this one for veterans. You'll see there's a lot of cool debris and explosions and smoke stuff, but sadly I will tell you the debris and the smoke we did not do in Cinema 4D. That was all composited after the fact. So, but you will notice on some of this, like some near the middle, all the parts that is disappearing, that's cutting away, we do have those little pieces kind of break out. So let's jump into Cinema 4D and I'll show you how we pulled this off. All right, so here we are in Cinema 4D R25. Now, we weren't working in R25 when this came out because R25 was not out at the time, but this is what we're working in currently. So yeah, let's jump into it. What we're gonna do first, we had to model this little I don't know what you call it, like this little diamondy thing. So we need to create basically a whole row of the little diamondy things. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and throw that into a cloner, drop that in. And then on the clone, we're going to go into a honeycomb because we want it to kind of match up. Because they're diamonds, they wouldn't match up if we just did a regular grid array. So our honeycomb, let's do 10, 10, 10 width and 10 height, and then let's size them down to where they just barely touch on the top and bottom. Now we're going to go ahead and transform these on the pitch 90 degrees. And then let's go ahead and bring our size height down. Awesome. So now we've got basically our cloner. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this real quick so that we can just kind of see it from here. So we've got our cloner of all the diamonds, and what we're going to do is we want it to break up, but we want it to break up like linearly along a path that we make. So first what we're going to do is we're going to throw this into a Voronoi fracture, this cloner, and we're going to make sure and keep it on as instance instead of render instance. So I'll show you why you want to do this. If you click on the render instance, you'll see all of our clones actually disappear and we only have one. The Voronoi fracture will not affect instances. It only affects like total geometry. So you want to keep it on instance, not render instance. So we've got the Voronoi fracture. Let's go ahead and go into our sources, and we'll make a lot more in the point amount. Let's do maybe 100. Let's do 250. So 250 there. That's cool. We want to make sure that our pieces are kind of small enough to where whenever they break up, they get this cool. You're able to get this cool explosion and like kind of a very narrow band across it. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to create a spline, basically the spline that we want to use in order to break this thing apart. So let's go into our top view and go over to our spline tool, and then we'll just start drawing out a break that we want it to make. So let's go from here to here. I'll hit escape and go ahead and clear that out. That's great. And let's go ahead and take the spline. We're going to go into our model mode and then move that down to kind of intersect with the center of it. Because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the radius of this spline in order to break apart the individual pieces. Now let's click on our Voronoi fracture, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a plane effector. So this plane effector, what we want it to do, we want it to control the individual pieces that are being shot up. So with the individual pieces, what we want it to do is we want those pieces to shoot up, and we want them to scale down. Now, since we're compositing everything, that's why we want them to scale down instead of like shooting off into somewhere and using dynamics. We can do that. That is possible, but we are under a tight deadline. We want to be able to get this done quickly, and we want it to be art directable. So that's why we're going about this method instead of going full on dynamics with this. So what we're going to do is we want those pieces to move up and we want them to scale down. So in our parameters in our plane effector, we're going to scale them or move the position along the Y, and then we'll scale them uniformly down to -1. Now that gets rid of everything, but what we want to do is in our fields, we're going to go ahead and throw this spline in there. So you can see the spline right now is acting on the field. And creating basically kind of, think of it like a black and white gradient. So if we click on the spline, you can see our spline shape is curve, which is fine. Our distance mode is along. So basically it's creating, it's affecting it along the path of the spline. So if you think of things as like a black and white values, similar to like a bump map or a displacement map, that's how I like to think of fields when I'm putting the two of them together. So let me hop into Photoshop and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. So as of right now, think of this white amount as what is being affected totally when I don't have the spline on. Everything is being affected. Well, when I turn the spline on, you can see that it's creating this gradient. So Photoshop, go over here, and then let me grab a black and white, and then go along here, and this is basically what it's creating here. It's creating this gradient to go along with the that's being affected. Which is cool. So when you think about it that way, you can think about different blending modes and stuff like that, similar to Photoshop. So what we're going to do here is we're going to change actually our distance mode. Instead of to be along, we're going to change it to radius, because radius will basically fill a radius around the spline and then make all the things within that radius be affected by it. So right now our radius is pretty small. It's only like 4 inches. So you can see as we build up this radius, it starts to disappear, which is pretty cool, right? So, and it's just the radius. We've also got these little like stray ones that are kind of hit, but not really and stuff. So what we need to do is go into our remapping and change the inner offset to all the way. So basically it's on or it's off, which is great. So we want it all and on or off. And while I'm thinking about it, let's go into our Voronoi fracture, and we're going to optimize and close holes. So that way we get it to look like actual like rocks and geometry and stuff like that. So cool. Now that we've got that, we want it to break linearly. So what we can do is in our plane, we can create a linear field. And you can see right now with that linear field, if we move it along, it breaks everything else. It doesn't do it. And so what you want to think about, again, you want to think about the order of operations and think about it in the black and white, like we looked in Photoshop. So let's move our linear field down to the bottom. And what we want to do, let's change that to normal, and we'll change this to multiply. There we go. Oh, now we got to spin our linear field around, and you'll see now as we move it, things shoot up and break apart just like that. So now if you're creating a cool animation, you can use the two and have it break up like that. And when you're doing it fast enough, you know, and you're compositing in both the smoke and the debris and stuff like that, it looks pretty good and it sells it pretty well. You know, let's take a look back at the video, what it looks like. You can see it goes by pretty quick. So when you add in those little smoke hits and the little bits of dirt debris and dirt hits and stuff, then yeah, it sells it pretty well. Okay, so the next one that we're going to look at is this one right here for heavyweights. The inspiration for this was they really wanted to feel like a really hard hit into this like rusted metal and stuff like that. And I was really excited about this one because this was, you know, I always wanted to do some like hard hitting into it and have it like depress in and stuff like that. And so we tried a couple of different things. We tried some deformers and stuff like that, and I'll show you real quick what we were talking about, but they just weren't doing it for me, so we had to figure out a way in order to make this look pretty good. So I'll show you what we came up with here. Let's open up a new project real quick, and then I'm gonna throw down just a plane to act as like the metal, right? Let's go into our GSG hub, and I'm just gonna throw down a just a quick metal. Let's go to metal. I'll throw this iron down right on top of it, right, so that we've got it. It didn't do correct. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. All right, and then we'll just make a little cube to act as our card pack, and I'll show you kind of what we did in order to do this. So I tried a couple of different, so I knew there was like the collision deformer, you know, which I tried, and I wanted to do, so you throw that on the plane, you put the collision, colliders, and then I did the cube, but it wasn't really doing it the way I wanted, like outside stretch, inside stretch, trying all the different ways. It wasn't giving me exactly what I wanted and how I wanted it to look. So and after a little bit of trial and error, what I decided to do was actually just kind of sculpt it in a way. So I'm gonna throw actually, let's since we're sculpting, let's keep it at 10 by 10. And then let's do this. So let's do the animation of the card pack, right? Okay, so let's start here. Let's say this is the card pack, right? And we'll do a keyframe there. And then we'll bring it up, say 20 frames, right? We want it to kind of hold there, and then we want it to slam down real quick. So let's do like maybe, let's try 7 frames. That may be too much, right? And we want it to like indent into the metal piece. So let's see what that looks like, and we can adjust our, yeah, let's adjust our curves a little bit to kind of make that feel a little bit more organic, right? Okay, so I go into my curves. If I hit H, it'll show me all of them, but I just want to worry about the position Y. So what we want to do is let's have this one hang a little bit longer. So let's extend those, okay? and then on this we want it to hit hard. So we don't want this this Bezier down. So let's what I like to do is I like to highlight this and then come over here to my attributes, and if you look at like left time, left value, right value, these are numerical values of what this where this curve is. So you could see if I go like, you know, 5 frames to the left, it's reading 5 frames to the left. So and then how much up in the vertical it is, that represents the left value. So left is also over here. If you had a handle over on this side, that would be the right value. So actually we just want to zero this out. So let's go to our left time, we'll zero that, and then our left value, we'll zero that as well. So then it goes up, it holds for a little bit, and then slams down pretty quick. Let's see what that looks like. Boom. Yeah, that feels pretty good. And so once we add a little bit of camera shake in there, I think that'll look pretty good. So now we have no indentation from the metal. We want to do that. So what I'm going to do is what I can go about it 2 ways. So actually, no, this is going to be the best way. So I'm going to go and change this to 100 by 100. Let's do 150 by 150. So once I've got that, I'm going to hit C. Actually, I'm going to take this plane and then I'm going to create a pose morph tag. So we basically have where it's not indented, and then we've got where it is indented. And then in order to create the second one, the second value, the indentation, what we're going to do is we're going to actually sculpt around it in order to give it that more organic feel, like it crashed into the metal. So what I like to do when I'm doing something like this is I'm going to duplicate this plane because I don't want to lose the initial one before I start sculpting it. And then I like just working on a sculpting one here directly on it. And I'll show you what I can do after that. So plane 1, let's just Shift C and type in grab. We'll grab our grab tool, right? And it won't do anything because this is not editable. So let's make that editable. Do this again, grab. It's not letting me grab. Yeah, well, oh, I need to go into point mode, sorry. Let's go into our plane, and now we've got this. Let's hold down middle mouse click and go to the left, and that will give you kind of the brush size. All right, so let's go ahead and start sculpting this with the grab tool, the grab brush. I like to just start like pulling stuff down, and let's go ahead and hide this plane so you can see. And so you can just kind of sculpt around it in order to get that nice little indentation all the way around the card. And what's great is you get this really organic feeling indentation. And you can always go back and you can adjust things and stuff like that. So let's go. That looks pretty good. And I like the little, like, I don't worry too much about whether it's like perfect or not, because I like it to look kind of messy in a way. It feels more natural that way, like it was indented in there perfectly, or imperfectly, I guess. So let's go through, and I'm just gonna like move these up, and that's starting to look pretty dang good. Let's go ahead and do this. If you're interested in sculpting for Cinema 4D, I actually have a almost 3-hour long tutorial series about sculpting in Cinema 4D. It's pretty good, if I do say so myself. So you could check that out on our the MoGraph YouTube channel. Let me hide this because I want to get some of these down. Well, I lost my grab tool. Grab, sculpt brush, there we go. Now let's move some of this down as well, even though you're not going to see that, and honestly you don't have to worry about it. All right, so we've done that. Okay, so now let's see, we've got that, and let's rewind and play. Boom. Right, But that doesn't do us any good just being like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually pose morph between this one and this one. So one important thing to note with pose morphs when you've got two different things is that it has to have the same amount of points. Otherwise, it'll get super funky. So that's why I like to duplicate this one and then work off of this one. Okay, so we've got this plane right here and then this plane, and we're going to pose morph between the two. One important thing to note is that you need to have this plane editable. So I'm going to hit C to make that editable, and then I'm going to go into my tags, I'm going to hit rigging, and then I'm going to hit pose morph. So in there, then the pose morph, I'm going to click points, and then I'm just going to delete this base 0. So I've got this base pose, and then I'm going to drag and drop this one in there and hit yes. So that moves that. So now you can see it deforms the mesh on there. So now if we go into animate and then we scroll through our timeline, let's start with it at 0, okay? And we're going to animate the strength, basically. So let's go here, and then it's going to be, oh boy, that's really quick. So we'll go on and then off. Let's see how that looks. There you go. Okay. That could look better. What can we do in order to make that look better? Let's add some secondary action to the cube. So it's going to hit, let's see if we can change this to where, let's maybe move like 1 frame, because we don't really get anything where it's actually moving. But let's make this cube kind of bounce a little bit. So, like just some very simple bouncing. So we'll do this, do that, there, and then go back down. I'm just gonna drag this keyframe, and then we'll go up just a little bit there, and then drag that keyframe out. So you'll see it does a little bounce. But let's go into our F curves, because the F curves are really what sells it. And then on this, okay, that's 0, that's 0, that's 0. Let's S for that, actually. So I'm going to take these two, and let's just extend them both out. Let's see how that looks. So something like that, yeah. I wish, so something that we did, you know, we had a little bit more time where it would indent in there. We could slow it down, but I mean, the thing feels good. Let's move it up a little bit higher so it feels like it's more impactful. But another thing that we can do is we can actually add some camera shake to it. Yeah, that's all right. So say, for example, we've got this, let's make a camera real quick. What we can do is we can add a vibrate tag onto it, and then as soon as it hits, we can vibrate. Boom. Let's see right there. We can enable rotation. Let's turn this off. Oh boy, we want 0, 0, 0, right? Want it off and then on when it hits, and we'll do like 2, 2, and 2, just a slight one, and then we will. Let's do that down to 0. Oh, we need to change the keyframe, the amplitude as well. So let's do that. 2, 2, 2. Might be too much. So yeah, so then it slowly goes down. I want that off. Keyframed off. There we go. And then on. There we go. So now we've got a little camera shake when it hits. So yeah, another thing that they wanted to do with this is they wanted to create some falling debris on that hit. So we had a bunch of this different debris, and we did end up using dynamics for this part. Let me go and grab some of that debris, and I'll show you what we did with it. Okay, so I just made some quick debris real quick to show off kind of what we did. What they wanted it to do was, as soon as the card hit the metal, we had some falling debris as a secondary action. And so what we ended up doing is we actually used dynamics on this in order to make it feel more realistic. I'm going to scale these up just a little bit, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw these into a cloner, and you'll see what I'm going to do with this. So I want it to feel more random and stuff like that. So let's do the grid. Let's do, okay, 3, 1, 3. That's pretty good. And then let's throw a random effector on it. And we want to, instead of doing, let's do position, and then we'll do rotation a bit. We'll rotate it along there, maybe a little bit there, and a little bit there. So we've got just these random clones all over the place, right? So what I did was I brought it out of camera shots, and I didn't lock down my camera, so it was out of camera view. And then as soon as it hits, I turned on dynamics onto these individual clone objects. And you'll see why I did clones instead of actually doing individual like dynamics with it, because I wanted it much more art directable, and so this was a way in order for me to accomplish that. So let's go into our simulation tags, and we are going to do a rigid body, and then on the plane we are going to do a collider body. And then we're also going to copy that collider body over to the cube as well. So then I'm going to unclick enabled, because we don't want it to happen until frame 27. So I'll keyframe that one off, and then I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to keyframe it. Let's go ahead and play that and see what it looks like. Oh boy, my camera shake got all wonky on me. But yeah, that looks pretty good. So we've got those dynamics that are happening, but we've got some really weird ones that are happening right now, a little bit of wiggle. We've also got this one that covers up the card, which we don't really like. I don't want it to cover up the card. So what's cool about using the cloner is that you can actually, it's very art directable. And so what we can do is we can actually go through, use our MoGraph selection tool, and get rid of the ones that we don't want. So let's go ahead and let it fall into place. Then we're going to click on our cloner, and we're going to go MoGraph effector, plane effector, and then I'm going to turn off the plane effector right now just so we can still keep everything. And in our parameters, we're going to turn off position, and we're going to set scale uniformly to -1. Then we're going to go over to our clone. We're going to select MoGraph selection, and then we are going to select the ones that we do not want. So for example, that one, I believe, and this one. And then in our plane, we are going to go into our effector tab, and we're going to drop this MoGraph selection in. Now let's rewind it, turn on our plane effector, and you can see those ones disappear. And so now we've got just these ones, and the other ones aren't affected by it. So super art directable, which is really great. And yeah, so that's how we finished up that one. Let's look at the next one that we're going to be hopping into. Okay, so this one was for the captain's one. And there's a lot of stuff going on, and it goes by pretty quick. So let's kind of break it down a little bit. So we've got this piece of cloth that comes in, and it's kind of waving a little bit. And then we've got these threads that come in and create this cool little threading effect, and they're moving along with the cloth. So yeah, let's go into that, and I'll show you how we pulled that off. Start a new project real quick. And so let's go ahead and start with a let's do an arc. So with our arc, what we're going to do, we want the end angle to 180. So what we want the arc to do is basically, for the threading, we want it to come in and go down and then tighten. We want it to get a little bit bigger here, and then we want it to tighten at about 180 degrees. So let's do some keyframes real quick. We're going to start at 0. We're going to keyframe our end angle, and then let's go to like 20 frames. And then we'll keyframe our end angle to 180, which is cool. Okay, so that's cool. We've got that coming through, but we really want it to look a bit more organic. So let's start with, let's scale this up a bit. So as it gets here, to the middle of it, we're going to scale up on the Y, probably about, let's do 1.5. Let's move our camera down so that we can see. We need to keyframe that. Start at 1, keyframe. So up to 1.5 and then down. We're going to bring this down a whole lot more to like, say, let's do 0.1. Let's see how that looks. So we've got this real quick animation of a thread coming through and tightening. Let's spread this whole thing out a little bit. So I'm just going to highlight everything. Let's make it about 40 frames so we can see it a little bit quicker. Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do with that is we're actually going to take this animation and we're going to put it along a spline in a cloner. So first, let's go ahead and take a plane, because what we want to do is we want to create that waving effect on the cloth. So let's make this plane quite a bit bigger. Okay. And then let's throw a wind deformer in there. So here we're going to go to our deformers. We are going to go to, where is it? Wind. And we're going to drop that wind deformer into the plane. And as you can see, it's super chunky and it's along the wrong axis. So let's go here. Let's rotate our wind deformer. There we go, about 90 degrees. Cool. And now you can see it's super chunky and it's gross and it moves like that. It's because we need more segments. So we'll go over to our object. Let's increase the segments, the width segments. Let's do like 150. So that looks a lot smoother. Unfortunately, it still looks really gross. So let's adjust some of our wind parameters. Let's make the X quite a bit bigger or smaller, and our Y, that's fine. Let's turn up our size. There we go. Now we get this nice little waving wind action. Let's play with this a little bit more. So that's cool. That'll work. That'll work for what we're doing right now. So I'm going to add quite a few more frames. Let's do like 500 so we can see it as it goes along. Okay. So right now we've got this. We've got the wind deformer and it's deforming that. And then we've got our single string. Now I'm going to throw this arc into a null object, and we're going to go ahead and call this string. Okay. And what we're going to do is we want to match the string along with, we want it to basically stick to the plane. So what we can do is we can create a, where is it? It is a end side. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do, what is it? A two-sided end side. So let's go ahead and remove our plane and our string, so you can see it's basically just a straight line. All right, so we've got this end side. What we want to do is we want to take our plane. We want to copy the width, go over here. We're going to do that, and since it's radius, we need to divide it by 2. So we'll go ahead and divide it by 2, and then you can see the plane and the end side should be the exact same length. So now we're going to make the end side editable. And what we're going to do is we're going to subdivide it a whole bunch of times. So we'll go ahead and go into point mode, select the 2 points, and it is US. I think that should be good. And then what we're going to do is we're going to throw the same wind deformer onto this end side. and you can see the end side matches perfectly with the animation of the wind deformer. So then we're going to use this end side spline in order to clone the strings along the end side. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So we're going to go MoGraph cloner. We're going to drop this string into the cloner, and we need to make sure that the string is in the right place as far as the axis, which I'm pretty sure that is. Let's pull this out real quick. There. Let me go into this mode. All right, so there, and then, yeah, okay, it's good. Throw that in the cloner, turn that back on, and then in our cloner, we don't want to do a grid, we want to do a linear. Actually, no, we don't. We want to do an object, and then we want to throw that end side into our object. Now you can see, as we hit play, it follows along with it. Now, but you'll notice, like right at the beginning, it jumps from one side to the next right there. Yeah. So what we have to do is we need to create a second inside. I just duplicate this one. I will call this one rail so that we don't get that. And then I'm going to move this just slightly over to the right. And then in our cloner, I'm going to throw this into our rail. So that way we don't get that issue anymore of it doing that. So now we need to change, of course, our axis because it's going along the wrong angle. Let's go to transform. Is it along? Nope. Pitch? Nope. Our bank. Okay, so we'll do -90 there. So now you can see, cool. We're creating these cool little things that move along with our spline and stuff. And then let's increase this a whole bunch. Let's bring this up on count. Let's do even, and let's bring it up to, sure, we'll do that. Cool. So now we've got these that go along, and they do the animation along with it. Let's bring the scale down a bit, because we don't really need it that big. So let's select all of them. I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to bring that down to like right there. Okay, so let's make them move on a more gradual way instead of all coming on at once. So right now you can see that they all come on at once, but we want them to go on as it goes along. So let's go into our cloner. We're going to MoGraph. We're going to go to Effector, and we're going to go to Step Effector. And what we're going to do here is we're going to offset. Let's ignore our scale, but let's offset our time by like, say, 50 frames. So now you can see as it goes along, it's offsetting the time, which looks pretty good. That's pretty good. And then what we can do, it's good, but it looks way too linear. We want it to have a little bit of, we want it to look a little bit more organic. So let's, in our step effector, let's add a field, and let's add a shader field. And in that shader, we're going to add some noise. So let's go ahead and play this again, and you'll see it looks a lot more organic and less robotic. You know, let me turn off my grid so that work plane. There we go. So that y'all can see that a little bit better. Let's rewind it. You can see, so they don't all come on at the same time. They all come on at different variable times based on the shader effector, which is pretty cool. Let's rewind that. Take a look again. And let's go down here. So you can see, and it is perfectly flowing along with that, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's how we did that one. Okay, so let's look at this last project that we've got. This one was done for the harvest, the Thanksgiving one. And you see we've got these fun little like hand turkeys. You know, we had the idea for hand turkeys because it's always fun for Thanksgiving, right? And we've got all these little individual elements and stuff, and the hand turkeys kind of have this really natural, organic feeling like someone's actually behind them, you know, holding them up and walking them across, and then we get this cool crumple effect at the end. So let's kind of break this down. This is the gist of of our project. And what we've got is we've got a background layer, which you can see here. And that has everything kind of come up into place. And then I've got a Luma mat on this foreground layer, as you can see here. So it's just cutting out the foreground so that we can put the turkey in between the two. So you can see as it comes up. And then we've got this turkey, which is just a PSD file. Dave actually had his daughter, he had her draw her own hand on Procreate and then send it to him so that he could create this turkey. And we put some tape right there, so it looked more like a kid was doing it. So then we've got this turkey, and we can control it however we want. So we built the whole thing in Cinema minus the turkey. The turkey was done in Photoshop. So let's show you what we did in Cinema in order to get this accomplished. So let's hop over to Cinema real quick. And what we've got here is we've got our scene. So you can see our scene, the individual elements come up and they're all kind of layered, and we've got some lighting so we get some good shadows and stuff like that. So they all come up into place, and you got the foreground, and then we don't have any turkeys because we actually ended up doing the turkeys in After Effects. But what we needed a more natural, organic feeling of the turkeys kind of hopping around. So what we did was we used a thing in Cinema called Cappuccino. It's been around forever, and I'm not sure if anyone really uses it. Let me close that down so you can see how I get there. So first off, we're going to create a null object because that's what our turkeys are going to be linked to. So we'll create this null object, and I'm going to throw this slightly off screen. And then we're going to hit Shift-C, and we're going to type in Cappuccino. You can see I already started Cappuccino. So bring that up. And what this does is it records actual motion. So when I start moving this null object, it's going to start recording where everything is. So you can do either a single frame, or you can start real time, you can stop real time, and then you can set your range if you want. We're just going to do project, and we're going to do start real time. But since it's off screen, I'm going to need to go into my 4-view mode, and then I'm going to go back to 0 because start at current time is selected. So I'm going to hit start real time, and as soon as I start moving this null object, you'll see it's going to start recording everything. So we can hit start real time, click on the null, and then we'll start moving stuff. And I'm just like doing some random stuff. And there you go. Once we hit the end of the timeline, you can see we've got a ton of these little keyframes, and they have all been linked to there. So yeah, we've got this really natural, really kind of crappy organic feeling, you know, with our turkeys, which is what we wanted. So what we can do on that is we can throw a tag on it. Let's do a external compositing tag. We'll throw that on there. We'll call this turkey. And then we're going to save out our project. Save that as turkeys. And then in After Effects, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import that same project. Okay, so we've got our turkeys.c4d file, and what we're going to do is we're going to drop it in, and we're going to do extract. So what that does is that extracts all the lighting data and the camera data and our nulls, which we have external compositing tags on. Now, I just imported this. I see that I'm going to have to extend my timeline a bit. Let's go to my composition settings. Let's set this for 120. And then you can see our null object. We have brought it in. So that's great. So what we can do is we can take our turkey. I'm going to grab this null, put it down here so we can stay organized. And then I am going to, let's find where that is. Let's move this turkey over to here. And I'm going to parent the bottom turkey to the top turkey. And you can see it does not move the same way it should, because it is this turkey is actually a 3D object, and this one is a 2D object. So it's not going to line up exactly right. So what we need to do is we need to make, let's go ahead and unlink that. We're going to make the turkey pre-comp 3D object. And then on this position, what we're going to do is we're going to take the first position here, we're going to take here, and we're going to paste that one so that we get the turkey in the correct position. Then I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. And then I'm going to link the turkey, because I think my turkey Well, yeah, it's very big right now. And let's go ahead and get rid of this light so that it's 100% luminous. We're going to scale this down and we're going to readjust everything so that we get the turkey in the right position. So now that we've got it on the correct Z axis, we can move it to the correct X and Y. So now we've got that, and you can see our turkeys have a much more organic feeling. We can even bring that up a bit so that we can see the stick. Yeah. So let me go ahead and extend these. Let's go into time, enable time remapping, and we'll extend these out so that we've got that. We can see the turkey. So now we want him to kind of turn around here. And actually, I kind of want to rotate him so that he doesn't look so like janky. I want him to kind of be straight up. So what's cool is because we're doing this, we're just using the null data as like the general data, and then we can adjust it from there. So like, for example, here we want him to turn around, but the null object is actually in the wrong spot. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Y, and I'm going to move this over to where the turkey stick is. All right. And then in our rotation, right about here, yeah, I want him to turn around. So I believe that's on the Y, right? So I'll do that, and then I'll go a couple frames, and I will turn him around this way. Negative 180. And you can see he just kind of turns around, boom, and he walks the other way. Yeah, pretty fun. Yeah, so that was the main thing, how we created the turkeys. The other big problem that we ran into, and I've never really found a good way to do this, so I just kind of did it myself. Oh, look, After Effects has crashed. That's great. Turkeys. Let's go ahead and send that report so that they know what I was working on at the time. Okay, I've got everything rebuilt now that After Effects decided to crash, and what you can see here is we've got our little turkey guy, and then probably around 75 frames, we'll say, we want it to start crinkling down. You can see in the video that we did, it starts to crumple like paper, and so I've never really found a good way to do crumpling paper. So I went ahead and did it in C4D, and what I did is I just sculpted everything. So I'll show you that. One thing though is with this, we can't crumple down everything together. So what I had to do, because these are all separate elements in like After Effects and C4D and stuff, what I had to do was I had to take my final project and export out about 30 frames from frame 70 to frame 100. So you'll see, let's hop over to Cinema and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here I am in Cinema, and what I had to do was I created a plane that was, I do 1920 by 1080, and then I just scale it down, and then I'm going to create a camera. Let's find a camera, and I'm going to go into the camera. I'm going to set that to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit. Let's make sure that we can see the plane. Let's go ahead and rotate it. And what I do is I just get to a point where I can see the entire thing in frame. Now you may be asking yourself, why are you doing that? And I'll show you. So actually we can take this width and we can set that as our Z distance, I believe. Oh, but we want negative. There we go. Now it perfectly lines up with the frame. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go from a bunch of 3D elements that have been exported out of After Effects to a flat 2D element, and we're going to use that as a luminant texture within Cinema. So let's create a new standard material, and in our luminance, let's go ahead and bring in some images. So here you can see I've got the crumpled images. I'm going to go ahead and hit no. And then in my animation, I'm going to calculate. and then I'm going to drop that on there. So you can see, let me double click on there, go to viewport and animate preview. You can see as it goes along, we've got that flat animation. So I guess on here we want about, 12 frames of crumpling down. So here's the fun part. What I did, one, I want to put a keyframe on my camera so I don't lose my camera. I'm going to go through and I'm going to manually sculpt a crumple down. Let's go into our garage shading, and you can see what I really want some of these pointy details. So I'm going to take it from quads into tris. And then I'm going to increase, let's keep it at 10. So let's make this editable. And then in all of our, we'll select all in our mesh. In our mesh, we'll go to cut, and we'll go to triangulate. Cool, so we've got triangles. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into point level animation, which is down here. If I turn that, you can see right now it's crossed out. That means there is no point level animation. And if I click on that, then you can see that there is point level animation. So let's go into our sculpting tools. Let's do Control C, and we'll do grab. So grab will allow us, you can see, to move some of these things. And if we do this, let's undo that real quick. We need to do a keyframe here to start at 0, and then 1, then we can start manually adjusting our stuff. Then we just need to go through and manually move some of this stuff all around, and then I like to come behind and kind of move it out so that we get some of those neat little 3D-esque effects. And add a keyframe, go to the next one, bring this down, and you just go through until you crinkle it all the way down. So I'm going to fast forward so that you can see what this looks like. Okay, so as you can see, I went through and I just sculpted everything, and then here at this point we could just do a keyframe, and we could do from 1, then the next one we could do 0. So that just kind of crumples away. And this is fast, you know, we could make it more art directable and play with it some more, but that's basically how we pulled off the crumpling effect. And I think it turned out pretty well. So yeah, that's my presentation. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, either matt@nexusmotion.com or matt@mograph.com. Make sure and watch, because Mograph is launching a whole bunch of fun stuff this year. We've also got Camp Mograph. Tickets go on sale here in less than a month, and we're super excited about that. Hopefully we will see some of y'all at NAB and the different events coming up. But yeah, thank you so much for having me, Maxon, Matthias, Paul. Thank you so much. And yeah, that was my presentation. Thanks.